What a week. The week in which I lost my Injunction virginity. A week in which I've spent much longer talking to lawyers and listening to them than I've spent talking and listening to politicians. Now let's be honest, go on, make my day is the reaction of most journalists when they're threatened with an injunction. In fact, one of my newspaper colleagues this week got a call from his boss saying, "Why on earth haven't you got us injuncted?"
Can you just talk me through how this is going to work? Then I'm going to turn to the screen, interview Nick. I need a second story as well. Tracy?
Now, when it comes to it, it isn't quite as much fun as you might expect.
Here we go, then. The BBC has been banned from reporting a news story on the Cash for Honours inquiry. The Attorney General obtained the injunction after hearing at the High Court this evening.
Kirsty Walk did her best to enlighten Newsnight viewers, but frankly not to much avail.
Good evening. Within the last hour, the Attorney General has obtained an injunction against the BBC. This is all a bit baffling.
It is, of course, baffling, and I'm afraid I can't unbaffle many people because there are strict limits on what we can say and what we can report. People become journalists because we like finding things out that other people don't know and then telling people about them. So imagine the frustration of knowing so much and being able to say so little. Thank goodness for Ming Campbell, who gave us about the only thing we actually could report that night.
Well, the important thing to remember is that the Attorney General acts in the public interest. And in particular, he's got an interest to ensure that no possible prosecution is prejudiced, or indeed that no possible defence to a prosecution is prejudiced. I think what one might be able to infer from the fact that he felt it necessary to seek this injunction is that he at least contemplates the possibility that a prosecution of some kind will follow.
You can imagine the frustration, too, at watching your rivals nibble away at a story you're legally barred from broadcasting. Now, you might wonder why they weren't injuncted too. I certainly did. The answer is that the wording of the injunction would have actually tipped them off about the story, which the police, of course, wanted to keep secret. Now, the story. We've forgotten about that. Actually, amidst all this hullabaloo, it was pretty simple, but I would say pretty important too.
Good evening. The BBC can now broadcast in full a report on the Cash for Honours affair, which we were banned from showing 4 days ago.
Sources have told the BBC that Turner wrote a document which spelt out her concerns that Levy's version of his role in drawing up the honours list was untrue. It's Tony Blair and not me who hands out the honours, Lord Levy's always said, and he insists he'd no role in deciding who got them. He might, he accepts, have expressed his opinions. Now, who cares, you might well be thinking? And one answer to that, of course, is the police. This document is central to their investigation, and it's one of a number of reasons why the investigations kept being extended as they switched from looking at Cash for Honours and looked at an alleged cover-up. Well, it had to happen. 4 days after the injunction, a newspaper, The Guardian, printed a version of our story. Now, where on earth could they have got it from? Downing Street? Well, I'm glad to report that the Prime Minister's official spokesman said that they'd check at Downing Street whether anyone had actually leaked it. As if they'd come back one day and say, actually, you know what? We did. It might have been galling, but The Guardian did actually help our legal case. This case has highlighted the controversy once again of the role of the Attorney General, part independent legal advisor, part politician, and mate of Tony Blair.
In the light of recent controversy in relation to Iraq, BAE, and now Cash for Honours, isn't it essential that the functions and responsibilities of the Attorney General should be separate so that decisions about prosecution can be taken entirely independent of government?
No, I'm afraid I don't agree with them.
Another consequence of the Cash for Honours saga was seen in the big debate about the House of Lords this week, with more and more politicians nervous of arguing that peers really ought to be appointed. It fell to the old guard to make the case for that.
If the House of Lords has obstructed the House of Commons on the basis of nobody there being elected, the moment anybody in that place has an elected mandate, even on a poll of about 20%, which is what it will be if they're voting at the same time as the European elections, they'll say, I've been voted for. You, friends, get lost.
Many of them appear very, very rarely, if at all, in some cases. Some are suspected of owing their place more to their checkbook than to their intrinsic merits. Some, frankly, are the dead wood of this House that have been moved to another place in order to make way for perhaps more enterprising replacements. And some have been convicted of criminal offences but retain their seats in our legislature.
I say to the people of this country, I would prefer to spend this money on hospitals, roads, police and schools, rather than on an elected House of Commons. I hope we will stand up for the Lords as they sit today.
The ayes to the right, 337. The noes to the left, 224.
Those cheers were for the historic vote of the Commons to make the Lords 100% elected. Some of those cheering, though, were laughing too, because they think there's not a chance it'll ever happen.